Hi, it's Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Career Coach Office Hours. Yay! End of summer. I hope you've enjoyed it, no matter where in the world you are. And I spend time on Tuesdays and Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S., taking questions from people or answering questions from people, because sometimes they're sent to me in advance of the show. I answer questions about job search, hiring more effectively, management leadership, career transition, or helping people with a particular workplace issue. So if you've got a question for me and you haven't sent it to me in advance, put your question into chat. I'd be very happy to answer it for you. I'm also going to remind you to visit my website, thebiggamehunter.us. There's a ton in the blog that can help you. Plus, you can schedule time for a free discovery call, schedule time for coaching, find out about my courses, books, and guides. There's just a lot there that can help you. And subscribe to JobSearchTV.com on YouTube or download the app on Amazon, where there's a JobSearchTV.com app. And you can also watch me on other streaming platforms through an app called BingeNetworks.tv, which goes to about 300, or actually more than 300 streaming services. Subscribe on JobSearchTV.com for YouTube, as an app for Amazon, and on BingeNetworks.tv, an app that covers a lot of places. And also, I'll remind you, No BS Job Search Advice Radio is a Monday through Friday show where I provide job search advice for people that's good anywhere in the world. It's the number one show in Apple Podcasts for job search, more than 2,400 episodes over almost a dozen years where I've been taking questions from people. And you can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, watch it on Spotify as a video app. It's going to be also coming to YouTube very soon. I'm already starting to drip videos there, but not all my content is video enabled. So, we're going to be starting at a particular point and working from there. I'll also remind you, if we're not already connected, connect with me on LinkedIn or follow me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Mention that you saw the show. I like knowing I'm helping some folks. It makes me feel good. And Lord knows I put a lot of time in to sharing content, and that goes beyond the coaching that I do. So I'd love to hear from you. And I've got questions from people that were sent to me in advance of the show. So the first one is, do employers look at your LinkedIn profile when considering hiring you for a position, or are they more interested in your resume and cover letter? I'm not sure I didn't answer that last show, but let me cover it again. I think what they do more than anything is it depends upon how they're hearing about you. If they're recruiting and they're on LinkedIn, your profile is the primary place, and the resume and cover letter back it up. If you're applying for a job and you're uploading a resume to an applicant tracking system, well, that's different. It's the resume that carries the weight. If the resume is the lead item, then often they go to the LinkedIn profile in order to confirm, see if it's congruent with your profile, with your resume. So understand, they should complement one another. The information there should be pretty congruent, not identical, congruent. Look up the word CONGRUENT if you don't know what it means. And from there, what you're able to do is, the profile leads the way when they're recruiting on the platform. The resume and cover letter lead the way if you're applying, if a job board, or you're sending your resume in through LinkedIn or any other service. Hope that answers your question. Okay, let's continue on. So, what would you do when a job seeker wants to talk with human resources, but the line manager rejected the applicant? I thought about this for a couple of minutes because it reminded me of something. And what it reminded me of was that when I did recruiting, I had two instances where people I'd submitted for interviews at different firms each had an incident occur that I believe should have been escalated. One was a woman, one was a man, and there was inappropriate contact with each. I'm not going to go into the specifics, it's not important. So I escalated by contacting the president of each of the two firms, and I didn't know them, but I indicated that who I was and what my relation, what my, why I was contacting them, and that I thought it was appropriate that they know what I had been told. Although I could have contacted the Human Resources Organization, that was a different time, pre-Me Too movement, where I just thought it was better to escalate to the highest level. And I'll just simply say it was the right decision on my part. However, I know people are tempted to say, um, why should we have them talk to HR? The line manager turned them down. I think the first thing that someone should do is to ask this person by email, what's the intention of wanting to speak with HR? If it is the typical situation where it's, I think they made the wrong choice. I wasn't asked anything about such and such, and I should have been interviewed, and I should be hired. Well, then you can kill it off right then and there. You can basically tell the person that HR is not going to have this conversation. You've been rejected by the decision maker, and let's bring this to a polite conclusion. But I still stand by what I said earlier. You have to understand why it is they want to speak with HR before summarily dismissing them. Because there are just too many incidents where people wind up in bad conditions and having a bad experience. And you don't want to be one of those companies that misses hearing that, so that you have a chance to respond rather than reading about it online or in a newspaper. The next question is, what does it mean if your interviewer says, I'm not going to lie at the beginning of the interview? There was a book I read when I was in high school. I don't recall what its title is, but it told the story of a butler who learned a number of lessons waiting on a particular family. And one of the lessons is when someone tells you they're not going to lie, the next thing you're going to be told is a lie. So I'll just simply say, rather than accept that statement at face value, and I hope it's true, but rather than just accept it at face value, I want to ensure that at some point you're in a situation where you can test out the integrity of their answer, the honesty of the answer, since they made the point of telling you, I'm not going to lie to you. Test it out. And if they have lied to you, well, I'd simply say don't confront them with it, because you may have missed some of the texture in the question or in their answer that might cause their answer to you to be technically correct, but not exactly truthful. I'm not going to go into details about what I mean by that. I'll just simply say, I've always told job hunters there are three lies in finding work. The first one is, how can you tell a company is lying to you? The answer is their lips are moving. Everyone in the process is posturing for advantage, and thus they try to be really dramatic and say, I'm not going to lie, but they may embellish the truth a little bit, tell a white lie, and think that they're being honest. Don't accept the statement at face value. Maybe their intention is not to lie, but sometimes unpleasant truths occur. Okay? Should you hire people who are better or smarter than you? Well, the first question is, are you capable enough to allow them to be great, to be their fullest self, or are you going to micromanage them and turn them into obedient slaves in order to um, put, in order to control them? And no one likes to be controlled. You've hired them because they're better than you. Smarter is irrelevant, but better at the work that you need them to do. For example, a manager may not be able to write code anymore. A CFO may not be able to do some accounting function that they could do many years ago, but it's been a long time and they're going to be rusty. So just understand, you want to be hiring people who are better than you, who aspire to great things, and you want to support them as they go on their path so that they do become better and they are more successful. It's kind of like one of your jobs is to be like a parent who wants to have a child have a better life than they did. Well, you want a subordinate that you hire who you think is really smart and at that level in life is even better than you ever were. You want to help them get better. You don't want to micromanage them into oblivion because then what you're doing is crushing them. You're crushing their spirit, and that defeats the purpose of hiring someone better than you. So remember, there should always be limits as to what you do. And yes, you should be hiring people better than you. And I'll just remind you, put your questions about job search, hiring, management, leadership, career transition, or any question you have about a particular workplace issue, put that question or comment into chat. I'd love to answer your question today. Okay? How do companies try to hire the person? How do companies try to assess the personalities of people who are applying for jobs? There are a few ways that they try to do it. And one is the industrial psychology test, where they ask you a series of questions that are politely called industrial psychology questions that are designed to get a sense of who you are and how you behave under certain circumstances. That's the primary one. The second one is in the interview, they want to get a sense of your personality. And thus, the reason they do it is they want to get an idea of whether you'd fit into the organization. I don't think doing it that way works, but they think it does. It's seat of the pants too often. It's Mickey Mouse, to be blunt. It's really a childlike way of doing it and not ideal. So they do it in those two ways, some version of testing, or in the course of the interview, they want to get a flavor of you as a human being. And then from there, they make a choice about whether you'd fit. Next question is, what should I do if my manager does not value me, even though I do my job well at work? I don't know what you mean by value you. What do you mean by value me? So the question again is, what should I do if the manager does not value me, even though I do my job well at work? So I don't know how experienced you are or inexperienced you are, but I might sit and meet with them and say something very simple to them. I get the idea that I don't want to say you don't appreciate me, but you don't really value the amount of time I put into this. I don't think you really value the amount of effort that I put into this and how difficult some of these assignments have been. And from there, you shut up. because you don't want to go over the deep end because you're not going to get anywhere from that. All that's going to happen is they're going to resent you. They're going to be hurt by the statement, and you're not going to get anything more out of them. Once they've defended their position, then what you're able to do is say, thank you, I feel better. Thank you. And look sincerely at them. Excuse me 1 second. Feeling as though what you've done is make sure that they hear you and that there's some version of communication between you and your manager. So the simplest thing I would say is you've got to talk to your boss and get a clear handle on what they think about your work. That's it. Okay. In a job interview, how do we know whether our answer is too long or short? Well, the answer to that's pretty specific, and that is you start to notice that they're not listening. Their eyes basically say they're thinking about something else, and they're not focused on you. So the way you deal with this is that all your answers should be about a minute to a minute and 15 seconds in length. Why? After that, people find it difficult to keep listening. We live in an ADHD culture, right? Everyone's ping-ponging between things. Lots of stuff to do, not enough time. And the result winds up being you have a limited attention span. I've observed and been able to verify a minute to a minute 15 is probably about as far as a lot of people can listen uninterrupted. So the way you deal with it is by keeping your answer to a minute 15, and then pausing and going, I can go into more depth if you like, but that's up to you. If you want me more details, I'm happy to provide them. And they may follow up with, oh, no, that was great. Or, yeah, I really appreciate it. And thus can move on from there. Here we go. Another question. Oops, sorry. My manager doesn't listen to feedback from me about anything. I'm quitting. Should I tell him the real reason or just say nothing? You'll know what the right answer to that is in the room. Generally, I lean towards saying nothing. You're leaving. That's it. What do you expect they're going to do? I'm sorry, I'll change. And beg you to stay on board? No, that's not going to happen. So what you want to be doing is having a conversation with them, saying, I'm feeling frustrated. And when I get feedback from you, basically, it's not useful. So I want to encourage you to compliment me on the spot when you think I'm doing something well, and bring me into an office and talk with me if there's something you don't think I'm doing well. And I'm good with that. That's a real good approach that deals with my response to stuff. So that's really the way to handle things, I think. We've got more. And the next one is, what are the differences between a cover letter and an offer letter? So you're right. They both are forms of letters. And a cover letter is something that used to exist pre-technology, when we used to mail resumes, and this letter sat on top of the resume that you sent and talked about how your background fit the role as you understood it. An offer letter, on the other hand, is, we're going to hire her. We're going to hire him. Yeah. They've made the decision to hire, and the offer letter spells out the terms and conditions under which you'd be working and how serious they are about their financial offer. So that's it in a nutshell. There's more. And I'll just tell you, if you've got a question for me about job search, hiring, management, leadership, any workplace-related issue, a career change, put it into chat. I'd be very happy to answer your question. Okay, next question is, can an employee really get fired for standing up for themselves while getting berated unfairly by the management? Happens all the time. Happens all the time. And thus, people are berated and left bewildered very regularly. So don't fall into the trap. And if you wind up in a situation where you are being pushed around and you're in a situation where emotionally you're at risk, speak up, make your feelings heard, and go from there. Okay? Next one is, can an employee really get fired for standing up for themselves while getting berated unfairly by the management? Yeah. No one wants to be berated. No one wants to be verbally abused. No one wants to ever be in that kind of situation. So can you wind up in a situation where you're fired for standing up for yourself? You betcha. I remember, again, I had an employee working for me. Ilan was someone who was difficult. And I was the holdout on him staying. My partner wanted him fired. I held out until one day, I forget what his mistake was, but he made a mistake and he started attacking me. And without going into the details, I fired him on the spot. So, yes, they can get fired for standing up for themselves while getting berated unfairly by the management. I wouldn't say that I treated him unfairly, but what I did do is make it clear that such behavior was not tolerable. And that once I made that decision for him to go, he was gone. That was it. So yes, an employee can get fired for standing up for themselves while getting berated unfairly by the management of a firm. Yes, it can happen and should happen. Let's go on to the next question, please. Oh, yes, I remember this. Do recruiters really care about eye contact? So, excuse me for a second there. I just got tired all of a sudden. So, do recruiters care about eye contact? Yes. And they care about eye contact because it's a connection with people. Don't care if it's on video, don't care if it's on person. Obviously, on a video, on a phone call, they can't see you. But in the course of speaking with you, you always want to be in the position where you're making eye contact with people because that allows you to connect with them. It's one of the reasons I love video. As much as I like podcasting, I love video because you're able to see the person who has asked you the question, who is considering hiring you. You can make eye contact with them. It really does work. So, yes, they do care about eye contact, and they just care about eye contact because it's a connection with the person. So, I hope you found this helpful. I'm Jeff Altman. Visit my website, thebiggamehunter.us. There's a ton in the blog that can help you. Plus, you can schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session. You can visit my blog with more than 12,000 searchable posts about job search, hiring, management, leadership, whole host of different things. And I'm just going to remind you, while you're at the website, you can find out about my courses, books, and guides. 2, I'm going to highlight here the ultimate job interview framework and the right answers to tough interview questions. They are 2 very solid books that will help you job searching. Also, subscribe to me on JobSearchTV.com on YouTube. Download the app on Amazon. That's true for a Fire TV or a Fire Stick. Watch me on bingenetworks.tv, which goes to more than 300 streaming services, and subscribe to No BS Job Search Advice Radio. And that's available in audio or video forms. Lastly, connect and follow me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/The Big Game Hunter. Have a terrific day, and most importantly, be great. Take care.